The moment Mrs. Karen Whitaker stepped onto the front lawn brandishing her gleaming silver scissors, the neighborhood held its breath. Nobody expected the prim perfection of Elmwood Estates to erupt into chaos over a strip of grass no wider than a garden hose, but that's exactly what happened when she stormed across the invisible property line at dawn. The sun glinted off her hairdryer-sculpted coif as she marched toward the Johnsons' hedgerow, clipping stray branches with an intensity that made bystanders gasp. The rustle of leaves and the sharp click of metal echoed like a gunshot. Children peered through curtains, neighbors paused their morning jogs mid-stride, and Mr. Johnson, sipping his coffee on the porch, felt his heart pound like a war drum. He had tried gentle persuasion, polite notes, neighborly chats, even cups of homemade bread, but nothing deterred Karen's crusade for perfection. On that fateful morning, however, she clipped not just branches but the frayed thread of neighborly civility itself as her scissors sliced into the Johnsons' beloved boxwood hedge, sending a spray of leaves drifting like confetti across the sidewalk. Gasps turned to murmurs, and murmurs swelled into outraged shouts. The world tilted on its axis, and suburbia's mask of serenity cracked wide, revealing a simmering pressure cooker of grievances waiting for their chance to explode. It didn't take long for Mr. Johnson to mount his counteroffensive. By midday he had enlisted the help of his best friend Maria, a tenacious litigator with a penchant for poetic justice. Word spread that the Johnsons were televising Karen's misdeeds, and local social media buzzed with clips of her overzealous hedge trimming. The Johnsons set up a small camera across the street, capturing every dramatic snip. Soon, their backyard became a makeshift stage for suburban dysfunction. Maria arrived with folders stuffed with HOA bylaws, county property maps, and a well-thumbed copy of the state small claims handbook. She waved each document like a battle banner. When Karen returned that afternoon, scissors in hand and righteous indignation in her eyes, she found Maria waiting on the Johnsons' porch, cross-armed and resolute. "I believe those are our shrubs, Karen," Maria said, her tone calm but unyielding. "You might want to put the scissors down." Mrs. Whitaker blinked, as if awakening from a trance. The shiny steel in her grip trembled. She opened her mouth to protest, but the clip Maria played of Karen bragging about enforcing property lines at the HOA meeting last week froze her tongue. The truth was laid bare. Karen had boasted of riding herd on backyard aesthetics, threatening fines and legal action, all while painting herself as Elmwood Estates' moral compass. Now the video evidence turned her championing into a caricature of vindictiveness. A hush fell over the spectators. Even the neighborhood stray cat paused to watch, its tail flicking in disbelief. For the first time the scales tipped. The aggressor's momentum stalled, and the Johnsons seized the moment to reclaim both their hedge and the moral high ground. The showdown escalated when Karen called the HOA president, Mr. Philip Gaines, demanding immediate sanctions. Instead, Gaines called his lawyer, and what began as a garden spat swelled into a legal spectacle. Court dates were set, notices posted on weathered wooden posts near the contested boundary line, and invitations to witness justice circulated. Elmwood Estates buzzed as if electrified. Neighbors who once exchanged polite nods now debated the finer points of easement rights over barbecue fences. The county recorder's office lobby filled with pro bono volunteers eager to chronicle every shred of evidence. Digital photos, fingerprints on the scissors, even a forensic botanist's report on the clipped branch's cellular damage. The Johnsons' lawn became a testament to resistance, grass vibrant and untamed, defiantly sprouting where Karen's scissors had sliced. The local news crew arrived, cameras set on tripods, capturing Karen's solemn vow to restore order. But she was unaware that the Johnsons had preemptively posted a handwritten sign around their tree. "Respect the line, respect the law," scrawled in bold letters that mirrored Karen's own scribbles. Each passerby read the sign and glanced at the property line, where survey stakes marked the true boundary. The tension crackled under the midday sun like static electricity. Karen, scissoring a leaf off her own porch plant, realized that the Johnsons had carefully documented her trespass one clip at a time. Humorless laughter rippled through the crowd when a passerby sarcastically offered Karen a measuring tape, as though she might blend indignation with precision. The stakes had never been higher, but the underdog couple held firm, fortified by the righteous knowledge that truth, once unearthed, yields a power far sharper than any pair of blades. Just when it seemed the conflict would settle into the slow grind of pretrial discovery, an unexpected twist turned the tables. Mrs. Whitaker's own gardener, Julio, stepped forward with an affidavit. Karen had instructed him to trim the Johnsons' hedges without permission after dark last month, and then to lie about it if questioned. Julio's handwritten statement, delivered to the bench in careful English, described the midnight snip-snip of shears in the moonlight, the rusted hinges groaning, and Karen's whispered orders. His courage to speak up shattered whatever illusion Karen had of controlling the narrative. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Even Judge Malone raised an eyebrow. The sworn confession crystallized the pattern of aggression extending beyond that single morning incident. Karen, who had portrayed herself as defender of neighborhood harmony, now appeared as orchestrator of clandestine sabotage. Maria pressed forward. Your Honor, this demonstrates a calculated pattern of trespass, intimidation, and misuse of HOA authority, culminating in deliberate property damage and false claims. The judge leaned forward, adjusting his spectacles, and fixed Karen with a discerning stare. Ms. Whitaker, he said, the court expects citizens to resolve differences with civility, not clandestine garden warfare. The gavel tapped like a judge's metronome, marking each word. You'll answer for these actions. The hush that followed carried the weight of a deflating balloon. Karen exhaled so sharply her wig quivered. Her reputation, meticulously built on petty rule enforcement, began to crumble under the pressure of evidence and public scrutiny. The courtroom door swung open, and the sunlit hallway beckoned with its brutal honesty. Half the community scurried in. The other half lingered, grabbing after whispered gossip like fireflies in a jar. The twist of Julio's testimony transformed the entire conflict from a simple boundary dispute into a cautionary tale about unchecked power and moral bankruptcy. In the days that followed, Elmwood Estates bore the signs of reckoning. The HOA newsletter carried the headline "Small Claims Court Sets Precedent in Suburban Dispute," and social media feeds overflowed with memes of scissors wearing court robes. Karen's neighbors, once too intimidated to challenge the self-appointed arbiter, now exchanged glances of solidarity with the Johnsons, nodding as if to say, "We've seen enough." Karen, who once strutted like royalty among her trimmed privet-top subjects, now footed legal fees, shame parking her pride. The Johnsons, buoyed by victory, organized a community picnic on the contested lawn, complete with sandwiches stapled to a board that read "Justice Feeds All." Karen attended under subpoena, standing at the fringe, scissors dangling useless in her trembling hand. Children offered her paper crowns reading "Trim the drama, not the hedge," and she accepted them with a hollow curtsy. It was poetic justice on parade. The mighty sniped bare, and the community witnessed a fall more dramatic than any hedge clip. As the Johnsons distributed slices of victory cake, neighbors applauded, chanting, "Line in the grass, don't trespass." The sign that once symbolized Karen's tyranny now mirrored the Johnsons' resiliency, a handwritten testament to truth's triumph over trimming tyranny. The lesson was clear. True authority rests not in clipped branches or fearsome shears, but in the moral courage to respect boundaries and speak truth to power. The final chapter unfolded with unexpected grace. Karen, her oversized scissors confiscated, entered a small claims courtroom transformed into a forum for restorative justice. Judge Malone, recognizing the opportunity for community healing, broached an unusual settlement. Karen would write a public apology, attend a neighborhood mediation workshop, and volunteer 6 weekends restoring overgrown public spaces. In return, the Johnsons would waive a portion of their court costs. When Karen stepped to the stand, her eyes glistened not with scorn but with contrition. She read from trembling notes. "I'm sorry for crossing lines literal and figurative. I let my obsession with order harm my neighbors. I vow to rebuild trust." The apology rippled through the courtroom like soft rain on a parched lawn. Then she rolled up her sleeves and joined her former adversaries in clearing a path through Johnson Park. Wielding nothing sharper than a rake, side by side they uprooted weeds of resentment, planted seedlings of reconciliation, and watched the sun glint off honest sweat. By the time the last plank of the new community bench was nailed in place, Karen's posture had softened, her harsh scowl replaced by a tentative, hopeful smile. The Johnsons offered her a slice of cake with icing that read "New Growth," and she accepted without caution. The neighborhood gathered to witness the transformation. The same lawn that once bore the scars of strife now bloomed with daisies of forgiveness. As dusk settled once more over Elmwood Estates, Mrs. Whitaker, now simply Karen, paused in her new role as volunteer coordinator. She looked across the yard where she'd once brandished scissors with zeal and saw instead a mosaic of smiling faces, community gardens bursting with life, and boundaries respected not by fences but by mutual goodwill. The scissors lay abandoned on a nearby work table, repurposed into a delicate art installation called The Shears of Shame, reminding all who passed to choose compassion over conflict. Karen whispered to herself, "I finally cut through my own ego," and smiled at the irony. If someone asked whether the fight over a few feet of grass was worth all the upheaval, she would now answer with unwavering certainty that boundaries matter and that the greatest victory lies in the courage to admit one's mistakes. Will you weigh in? Share your verdict. Was Karen right in fighting for order? Or was she wrong to cross that line? When the settlement terms were announced, a hush fell over the makeshift courtroom, and the gravity of what had begun as a petty hedge dispute finally came into sharp focus. Karen Whitaker stood before her neighbors, once adversaries, now witnesses to her transformation, with trembling hands clutching the apology she had labored over all night. The Johnsons, seated side by side, exchanged a look of cautious hope as Judge Malone laid out the conditions. The public apology to be posted on the Elmwood Estates website, attendance at the monthly mediation workshop for 3 consecutive months, and 6 community service weekends in the park they had all come to love. The judge's gavel tapped once more, and the room exhaled. As Karen began to speak, her voice wavered, but each word rang with unexpected sincerity. "I crossed a line literally and figuratively, and I let my obsession with rules blind me to the kindness and respect that must underlie any community. I'm here to rebuild what I destroyed." When she finished, the silence held until Mr. Johnson rose and extended his hand. Karen hesitated, then took it, and the cameras captured the moment, the adversaries united in a gesture more powerful than any legal victory. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with rumors of what would come next. But when Karen joined the first weekend cleanup at Johnson Park, wielding nothing sharper than a rake, the doubts faded. Children offered to help, some even insisted on handing her small bouquets of wildflowers snipped from the very hedges she had once maimed, and Karen's cheeks flushed as she accepted each floral apology. By midday, the community circle formed around the newly cleared picnic area, where Karen and the Johnsons planted saplings together, the rich soil closing over their shared mistakes and new beginnings. As the sun climbed, the laughter that filled the air sounded like a promise that Elmwood Estates would never be the same. Word of the restoration effort spread beyond the cul-de-sac. Local news outlets ran human interest stories highlighting the unlikely alliance between the neighborhood busybody and the homeowner she once terrorized. Social media feeds lit up with before and after photos of the hedges, first jagged and truncated, then lush, and even each snap captioned with hashtags like boundaries and bridges and shears of shame. In the weeks that followed, the HOA newsletter featured Karen's essay on community service under the headline "Lessons from the Hedge: When Boundaries Teach Us to Grow." Even the HOA board found itself re-examining its own rules, simplifying arcane bylaws and establishing a yearly Neighbor's Choice award to celebrate acts of goodwill. As for Karen, she surprised everyone most of all by volunteering to lead the inaugural award ceremony. Standing at the podium, she admitted, "I used to think that justice was sharp, like scissors cutting away the unruly edges. Now I see it's softer, more like compost, nourishing the soil of community." The applause that followed was less polite than it was enthusiastic, as if Elmwood Estates had collectively exhaled a breath it had been holding for years. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson capitalized on the momentum to launch a neighborhood mediation group, training volunteers in conflict resolution techniques and offering free consultations for fence disputes, noise complaints, and the occasional, thankfully rare, hedge trimming standoff. The group's motto, "Respect the Line, Respect the Life," was scrawled in flowing script on a new wooden sign that replaced Karen's original Boundary Enforcer placard. On one side, the sign bore a simple survey stake graphic. On the other, a pair of shears crossed out in red. Beneath it, an inscription read, "Rooted in Respect." Every Sunday afternoon, neighbors gathered under the sign to discuss issues before they escalated, sharing lemonade and ideas as easily as they once shared gossip. Karen herself became a fixture, not as an enforcer but as a moderator, guiding conversations with the same fervor she once applied to pruning. When a disagreement over a newly installed fence threatened to flare, it was Karen who reminded the disputants of the saplings they had planted together, urging them to nourish relationships rather than sever ties. By the time autumn rolled in, Elmwood Estates had become a model for suburban harmony. The county invited the community mediation group to present at a regional conference, and the judge who had presided over the small claims case was seen accepting an invitation to speak about restorative justice. For her part, Karen completed her court-mandated mediation workshop and was knighted figuratively with a certificate honoring her journey from self-appointed arbiter to empathetic peacemaker. On the day she picked up that certificate, she paused in front of the renovated hedges she once mutilated and murmured, "I finally cut through my own ego." Behind her, the hedges rustled in the breeze as if in applause. Late one evening, as Karen locked her front gate, she noticed a new addition. A small plaque mounted next to the doorbell, inscribed with the words "Neighbor, not adversary." Beneath it, someone had carved two interlocking rings, one representing Karen's infamous scissors, the other a humble garden trowel. When she pressed the doorbell, a chime rang out, not in warning but in welcome. She stepped inside, the memory of her self-inflicted exile so distant it belonged to someone else. Through the window she watched as Mr. Johnson, now her friend, walked past the hedges she had once attacked, smiling and whistling a tune that carried across the cool night air. It was a melody of forgiveness, of boundaries respected and bridges built. And so, the tale of how HOA Karen brought scissors to a property line fight and ended up in small claims court became more than a suburban legend. It became a testament to the power of humility and community. It taught that the sharpest tools are of no use against the softer arts of listening and apology, that a single act of contrition can germinate change in the hardest hearts, and that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in cutting away what we dislike, but in trimming away the pride that blinds us. Now, as you ponder this story, we invite you to weigh in. Was Karen justified in her crusade for order, or did she go too far? Share your verdict, right or wrong, and join the chorus that keeps our boundaries human.